5 friends go down the current of a river. They are celebrating the bachelor party of one of them. After betting on a race, they stop on the riverbank and have fun for a while, diving and playing like teenagers. Their names are Roman and his brother Albert, Stefan, Peter, who is Albert's partner, and lastly, Vincent. They make a bonfire and around it they chat a little when suddenly they hear shots and become apprehensive. However, they say it's hunting season, so it would soon be normal to hear shots like that. Then they go back to talking and Stefan tells them he has a surprise to show them, but they would need to walk a bit. They agree and go. When they arrive at a spectacular place, a kind of tower at the lookout, they admire the beautiful landscape, take photos and thank Stefan, who tells them that this is where he used to go with his father. They look a little more and then continue following the trail, talking about college and work. Roman asks his brother Albert when he is going to hire him, but he says it depends on the investors and he doesn't have much influence on that, thus seeming not to care much about the matter, and Roman becomes a little worried. Continuing on the trail, further ahead they find something unexpected. A stuffed animal at the foot of a tree in the middle of the forest. Not knowing if it had an owner, Albert picks up the stuffed animal and puts it in his pocket. Remember this, as it will be of greater importance later on. They keep walking and Peter misses Romano and Vincent, who were taking a while to catch up. Peter shouts for them and they respond, saying they'll be there soon, as they were descending a very steep place and were supporting themselves on the trees to avoid falling. Soon we realized that Vincent was afraid of heights and Romano was helping him. But Vincent slipped and almost fell into a hole, narrowly saved by Romano. Then they soon meet up with the others. Peter wants to know what happened, but lying Romano says Vincent saved him from falling, wanting to prevent the others from knowing about Vincent's fear of heights. Albert takes out his cell phone and the group quickly talks about the agreement of not using cell phones except for taking photos. But he says he was just checking a few things, like the fact that there is no signal there. They grab their backpacks and continue walking. At a certain point, Roman asks again about the job because he's getting married and needs it. Albert, kind of dodging, says it will work out before he gets married. Then he hugs him and continues on his way. We see a brief memory of Roman with his fiancée named Lisa, where they are buying some things, and it seems there is a stable relationship between the two. Returning to the car, almost finishing the journey, something unexpected happens. They hear another shot, this time closer, and become frightened. Then they start to wonder about the hunter being so near when suddenly Vincent calls them and shows that he has been hit in the arm. Now they are sure that the hunter must be very close and wonder where the shot came from. Screaming, they ask whoever the shooter is to stop firing because there are people there. Stefan tends to Vincent's wound, and they prepare to get in the car and go to the hospital. But again, they hear another shot nearby. Peter shouts calling the shooter, but no one appears. Now everything starts to become very worrying, but instead of taking shelter or quickly leaving in the car, they keep shouting and waiting for some response. When they noticed the shot hit the car tire, making it clear they were not hunters and that something very bad was about to happen. With that, they quickly crouch near the car. Vincent says he needs to go to the hospital, but with the flat tire, there's no way to do so. What they can do is walk through the forest until they find a road about 20 kilometers away. Stefan recklessly signals to see if anyone is still watching them to shoot, and luckily for him, the shooter doesn't hit his hand. Peter wants to go to the road, but Stefan says to forget it, as there wouldn't be anyone there. So, not knowing what to do, Albert tries to call someone, but there is no signal, leaving them more tense. They decide to try driving the car, even with the flat tire. However, as soon as they get up, another shot comes their way, hitting the windshield of the car, making it completely evident that someone wanted to kill them. Then, another shot hits the side windows near Vincent's head, who is paralyzed with fear. Thinking it might be a sniper, they then take a risk and run quickly into the forest, intending to take refuge. However, Albert drops the phone and asks Romano to get it, saying it was important. He then goes back to get it and is almost hit, but manages to grab it. They run through the forest and stop a bit to rest further ahead. Romano hands over the phone and observes something that was placed with a marking on a trunk, a type of bracelet or cord. They ignore it, and not knowing what to do or where to go, Romano remembers a highway they saw when they were on top of the tower at the lookout. They look at the photos and find it, so they decide to head southeast with Stefan's guidance when Albert gets his foot stuck in a hole, getting quite injured. They look around closely and try to see if there was anyone, but they see nothing. Already somewhat lost, they cross a small river and Peter gets his foot wet in the cold water. He puts on a plastic cover to insulate, and while he is doing that, the others continue observing the surroundings. Further ahead, Roman hears a noise which they soon realize is a helicopter. Vincent starts to shout, but they quickly tell him to shut up, as the shooter could hear them and they could be found. Besides, obviously shouting wouldn't help since no one in the helicopter would hear them. Roman tries to encourage them, saying it has been a while since they last heard a shot and that they would get out of this, so they decide to continue. Soon ahead, they encounter a woman who was watching the river. They start shouting for her, but oddly she doesn't show any sign of responding to them. When they get closer, she turns to them but doesn't say anything. Then, unexpectedly, she grabs a rifle, aims at them, and shoots, killing Stefan. The others then instinctively start running in panic while the woman approaches Stefan's body. Her name is Eva. In the forest, the guys keep running as fast as they can to save their lives. They hide and stop to rest a bit. However, Albert's foot gets worse, and now they argue about whether they can continue running with Albert in that condition. Peter laments Stefan's death, and because he was the only one who knew the way out. They keep going, and Peter tells Roman that his brother was a problem for the group, and Roman, knowing this, becomes worried about what might happen. Albert walks with difficulty when they hear noises and stop. Seeing that no one was there, they continue and find a road ahead that they were not familiar with. So even without knowing it, they follow it. Peter goes first and the others follow him. They go along the road, and through the forest we see Ivo following. At a certain point, they are happy to see a house. Upon getting closer, they discovered that it was actually a convenience store. Upon entering, they find a young woman at the counter. They quickly ask to call the police and explain what was happening to them. However, the young woman says that there is no cell phone signal there either, but she mentions that she has a landline with an old connection. They ask if she knew of any woman in the forest, but she, seemingly unaware, says it was common for people to get lost. They then ask if she heard any gunshot sounds, but she says no and remembers a hunting accident that happened some time ago. However, before she can tell them anything about it, she is interrupted by Albert, who manages to call the police. He begins to tell the police what happened, and when he asks the young woman for the address of that place, she is instantly shot in the head. They quickly hide behind the counter and see through the window Eva, who was outside aiming at them. Albert tries to grab the phone but almost gets shot in the hand. They look for Vincent but see that he had been hit. Then they look at each other and see the woman outside, but she was no longer there. Roman tries to help Vincent, but he is soon killed with another shot from the woman who was now near the window. They hear her footsteps getting closer. Roman then grabs a glass jar and throws it at her. Then they hurriedly run outside towards the forest again. Already on the road, they look between the trees and see her. Thinking she hasn't seen them, they continue slowly backward, trying to enter the forest. However, she ends up spotting them and corners them. Peter then shouts, asking what she wants with them. However, she only looks at them strangely and doesn't shoot. Without understanding what she really wants by doing that to them, they waste no time and continue running, taking advantage of the fact that she didn't shoot. Further ahead, appearing to be walking in circles, they encounter her again, who is now standing still looking at something on a tree trunk. Romano then grabs a piece of branch and throws it to the other side, thus drawing her attention, and they manage to get away. After walking a bit more, they reach a place with some houses that were locked and apparently empty. They stop to rest, and Peter grows impatient, saying they had to leave Albert hidden in one of those houses and quickly go for help. However, he listens, and soon they start to argue and fight about the company. Then after some shoving, Peter decides to go alone and tells Roman that he no longer believes Albert will give him a job at the company, and also taught him something about Liz, his fiancée. Roman tries to follow him to find out more, but Albert stops him. Now it makes total sense. All that delay in hiring your brother. Roman questions the fact that they can't go on alone and asks what Peter meant. Albert then tries to deny it by blaming Peter, but Roman is suspicious and walks away from him. Going in another direction, he notices that one of the houses had a lot of cut lines outside and goes there. He enters and realizes that someone was living there when he sees a newspaper article on the wall with the photo of the woman who was hunting them. He also finds a laptop with a video ready to play. He watches and sees a drunk man with a rifle walking through the woods. When they see Eva and a child by the river, they then approach them, and Eva tries to make them stop filming. That's when we hear the gunshot and then realize that her daughter had been killed, being perhaps the accident the columnist referred to when talking about a hunting accident that happened, implying that she is now killing the men she deduces are hunters or any person who gets in her way. Romana enters the room and sees several other bracelets like the one she saw before on the trunk in the woods, understanding that they were placed there by Eva as a memorial to her dead daughter. Meanwhile, Peter, already on the road, is shot in the leg by Eva and screams for help. Roman and Albert hear it, and Roman runs after him. Eva shoots again and knocks Peter to the ground, who begs, saying he has done nothing against her, but she keeps shooting. The brothers arrive but cannot do anything and see her killing Peter. Then she also sees them and shoots Albert, but they manage to escape. After walking a certain distance, they stop to rest and Albert faints. Roman grabs his cell phone to see if there is any signal there, but what he sees is totally unexpected for him. Several photos of his fiancée on his brother's cell phone and messages, thus discovering that he was being betrayed and remembering the happy moments he had with her, now knowing it was all a sham. He also remembers that once he went out to buy food and unknowingly his brother took advantage and did whatever he wanted with her. Roman becomes completely disappointed and waits for his brother to wake up and says that he found out everything. Albert tries to justify himself, but Roman does not accept it, hits him and carries him away. Then he hides him from the woman who was still searching for them. Roman then remembers something his brother picked up during the walk on the trail, the stuffed animal. He then takes it back and puts it in his pocket. He also grabs a pocket knife and goes out in search of the woman. He arrives in front of several rocks and passes between them. However, inside he discovers the body of Peter and other people that the woman must have thrown there. He climbs up a ladder and reaches the top of the cave, where he finds Eva looking at the expanse of the forest. Then with a pocket knife, he approaches her from behind, and when he is ready to attack, she turns and shoots him in the leg. When she was going to kill him, he talks about her daughter, saying he knows her story and shows the stuffed animal he had taken. This distracts her, and Romano knocks her down. They have a brief struggle and fight for the weapon, but at a certain moment Romano manages to get the rifle and points it at her. However, he does not want to kill her and throws the weapon away. The two look at each other for a few seconds and she takes a few steps back, then throws herself off the cliff. Romano sits on the rock still in shock from everything that happened, but at the same time he also feels relieved for having survived that deadly outing.